Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Hospitality Edge podcast. This podcast is meant to bring together what we think are two sides of the same coin, real estate and hospitality. Whether you are a current or aspiring short-term rental property manager, host, or real estate investor, you're in the right place. Dive in with us to uncover the captivating stories and golden nuggets from industry heavyweights, including leaders, operators, investors, syndicators, founders, and entrepreneurs. So thank you. Really, thank you for embarking on this journey with me. I really appreciate you taking the time to listen to this podcast, and I promise I'll do my best to deliver value-packed episodes that hopefully will not just inform, but also help inspire the next generation of real estate and hospitality professionals. Truly yours, Sebastián Muñoz. All right, here we are, Justin. How are you today?
I'm well, my friend. Thanks for having me on.
Yes, super excited to have you here. Personally, this is going to be very interesting for me because, first of all, we're both in the short-term rental space. You are also a syndicator, and I also happen to be passionate by real estate. But there's also another angle that I think this is going to be super interesting, and is, the whole mentality aspect. So you're an ex-Navy SEAL. You clearly take good care of yourself.
Not next to Navy SEAL. I was in the Navy. I was not a SEAL, but yeah.
Okay, my bad. So in the Navy. Yep. Can you maybe explain to us maybe that difference for those ignorant like myself that thought it was the same thing? What's the difference between being a Navy SEAL and being in the Navy? And what were you doing?
Man, those guys work really hard. So, really, the Navy SEALs are a special operations group within the Navy, right? So every branch has their own form of special ops. So you got Delta, you got Army Rangers, the Navy's Navy SEALs. I think the Air Force is pararescue. And really, they're just a really select group of elite warriors. They go through some of the most rigorous training you can go through, really in the world, and especially in the military world. So, they're special cats. And I did get out initially to go back into BUDS, which is their phase of kind of their selection process, but it didn't end up working out. So, time to make some money, and real estate was the next choice. But I definitely take a lot of those kind of core beliefs and values into my business and really just in my life in general.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was kind of reading through your profile, everything you've been putting out there. And one of the things I found is you said you've learned more about how to build your business on your fitness journey than all of your formal education combined. So could you tell us a little bit about how that fitness journey started and maybe some of the principles from being in the Navy that became building foundations for the way you approach your work today?
Yeah, for sure. And I was always an active kid growing up for the most part, but really it wasn't until the military that I think I kind of got a lot of structure and discipline. And it's interesting because, there are people that go through the whole military and get out and effectively live the same life they've always lived, right? So it's always on the individual to take in the information and apply it to their own lives. But for me, cultivating that, very strong mindset and discipline and commitment, those were things that I truly did learn in the military. And then when you talk about my fitness, building a business is so hard, right? It's something that, a lot of people like the idea of doing it, but when it actually is time to do the work, that's where a lot of people kind of fall off the wagon, right? And I think, fitness is such a beautiful example of that because, there is no way that you can go from out of shape, sitting on the couch eating Twinkies to in top physical condition overnight. There's no pill you can take. You take all the steroids in the world. That is not going to accelerate you to that. So it's really about daily habits every single day. Waking up, eating the right stuff, getting enough sleep, actually putting in the work that would help you be successful in your fitness and your health and feel good. And I think, business is a perfect illustration of that because, you tend to just work and work and work and you don't see that result until at one point, if you're doing the things the right way, you kind of see that, not necessarily the end goal, but you look back and you're like, wow, this is how far I've come. The same way when you're working out and you've been hitting chest for 6 months to a year and you see those progressions, you look in the mirror and say, okay, now I'm starting to see the fruits of all the work I put in. So
Hmm.
that's why I said that. And I think it's still true, even with a undergrad and a graduate degree in economics. Like I learned more from that than I did in school the whole time. So.
Wow, that's super interesting. I'm a big fan, and maybe that's where the confusion came, originally of David Goggins. I've actually read both of his books, Can't Hurt Me and Unstoppable. And anyway, super super inspired by that kind of mentality of just pushing through, beyond obstacles and whatnot. So tell me about what originally got you into the military, and then at some point you mentioned too that you realized that there was more challenges out there, and although you enjoyed your time in service, you knew that you had to move on. So what got you into the military, and then what made you realize that there was something else out there? In your case, it ended up being real estate, but how did that transition happen?
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, I grew up in Baltimore, which isn't the greatest place on earth. And I mean, I think even at a young age, I recognized there was a lot more to the world than just the city that I was in. Right. So, the Navy, it really was kind of a spur of the moment thing, to be honest. I think I may have saw a commercial or something, and it just something clicked inside me to say, hey, it's your time. This is your way of kind of making it out and going off and doing something else. And it was just a gut instinct. And to this day, I always trust my intuition, in life and business and in general. So that's kind of what got me, on the wagon and military. And then the Navy just made the most sense because I did want to travel. And I was one of those fortunate ones that actually did. So I was home port change. Well, I went to Virginia, so Norfolk, where my ship was stationed. And we literally did a world cruise out of there to Yokosuka, Japan. So then after about a year of traveling there, we were constantly being deployed out from Japan. So yeah, I got to see all of South America, Brazil, Chile, Australia, Hong Kong. The list goes on and on. These amazing places. Getting to interact with different people that I never interacted with at a very young age, and that really kind of stuck with me and kind of built, I guess, my mentality of like how I kind of look at life and try to look at other people's perspectives and understand that, not everybody thinks the same way as myself or, even Americans in general. And I think it just really helped me in general. But in terms of getting out, I did have the dream to be a Navy SEAL. And, it's a super long story, so I won't get into why it didn't work out. But ultimately, when it didn't work out, my next task was, okay, well, how can I, at this point, I had a wife and family and all this kind of stuff. Well, not at that time, but I had kids. And it was really important for me to, how do I then create a true foundation for them and be successful? And I really had a whole lot of drive and ambition that I just needed to put into the right place. So it took a little while to find it, but, real estate ended up being, the place that I wanted to invest that time in. And it's just been all in from there.
All right. You talked about that drive that you had, and you had a setback. What you wanted to do didn't end up working, and they talk a lot about you need to have intensity, right? But you have to be intentional with that intensity. You need to have a direction towards which you're aiming. So you finished your military service, and then you went to university. I believe you studied economics,
Yeah, I was in Florida.
finance,
Yep.
whatnot. You did your master's in England because that's where your wife was, something like that. From what
Well,
I
that's where
saw,
she's from. Yeah.
that's where
Yeah.
she's from, exactly. But where in that process did you discover real estate? Was it as you were studying, you just realized this was an interesting asset class? And then how does real estate as a whole, where there's single family, multifamily, you can buy land, development, how do you end up in short-term rentals?
Yeah. So it definitely was along that journey of just trying to understand what I actually wanted to do. Right. So during grad school, before I did kind of work a corporate job after that, I didn't even read Rich Dad Poor Dad, but I read Robert Kiyosaki's Cash Flow Quadrants, which I think is probably a better illustration of where you kind of fall, right? So employee, kind of self-employed, business owner, and owner. And I really recognized that there was the only way I was ever going to make any real money was to actually go into business for myself or own something, right? And I think most people are starting to wake up to that have any desire to want to do better for themselves or just working on self-improvement in general, right? I'm really big on self-investment, self-improvement, just trying to get better every day in all aspects of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of led me into the easiest, what I thought would be was stock investing and investing in the stock market.
Mm-hmm.
And I got punched in the face real early. Like I'm not Warren Buffett. Like I couldn't analyze, companies. And I think there are some guys really good at doing that kind of stuff, but like, it just wasn't for me. Like intellectually, like I couldn't grasp the idea or understand what was going on in the market. The market's super irrational. You have no control. And then, after doing that didn't really deter me. It was like, okay, well then what else could I get into? And real estate was kind of the next thing, right? So I kind of took both. So real estate and building a business together. And that's what kind of led me into real estate. And I started off in multifamily syndications and I thought that was great. But I saw an opportunity with short-term rentals that it just felt right. It's hospitality and real estate. You have so much more control over how much money or how much top line revenue you can bring in, also how much you decrease expenses. And it's an asset class that has not been institutionalized at all, right? And I think we had this conversation before.
Yeah.
My kind of investment thesis is I think, in 10 years from now, there are going to be, REITs or private equity companies that go out and buy large portfolios of short-term rentals, right? Almost like what hotels are. And they're going to be sold and traded off of multiples and NOI. And the reality of short-term rentals, of most of them out there, I think it's over 90%, are just mom and pop. People own less than 3, right? So you're talking about a huge opportunity that's within this space that, if enough people come in and operate the right way, I think, they can be really, really successful and wealthy in the future.
And, it really connects very well with the whole purpose of this podcast. The name is, the Hospitality Edge. That might be rebranded to the Real Hospitality Edge. The reason is because there's kind of two sides to the coin of the industry where we're both in. There's the hospitality side of it, which is the guest-facing part of it, the service-oriented part of it, the exceeding the expectations of your employees and your guests and whatnot. And that's what drives a lot of people into our space. And if you talk with a lot of operators, they identify themselves as hospitality professionals. But then there's this other side of that same coin, which is the real estate side of it, which at the end of the day, it's required for the hospitality to be in place. Some people would disagree with that. But at the end of the day, these are accommodations. These are properties that need to have, financing. There needs to be someone who makes that investment decision, and for that property to remain as a short-term rental property, there needs to be a return at the end of the day. So, talk to me about how you see, those two different sides of the coin working together, because there might be some interests on your, let's say, real estate side of the coin that are all about the bottom line, profit, efficiency. And sometimes you need to sacrifice some of that for the hospitality, right? To deliver a better guest experience. So how do you think in terms of hospitality, but without losing the interest that you have towards your investors of, driving bottom line at the end of the day and profits?
Yeah, I think they kind of play on each other, right? So, a part of the short-term space is you can't have one without the other, right? So you need the tangible asset of real estate, but what's actually going to drive that revenue and make it advantageous is the hospitality side, right? That true operations and that guest experience focus, which ultimately makes the opportunity on the real estate side. And I always, tell people, if you look at two homes that are side by side, that if you say they're completely identical, right? You're both $500,000. I think it's a safe bet if you can buy both those homes and let's say you rent them out and let's say $40K a year is your long-term rent, right? That's your top line. But let's say then I use one of the properties and I run it as a short-term rental, and then my top line now is $200K, right? So which property is more valuable? The one that's actually making the $200K in revenue is should be worth a lot more than the other property, right? And this is kind of bring it back to what you were saying is But without that hospitality piece, that is not possible, right? So they're kind of intrinsically connected, that you need both to be true. It needs to be a property that actually has value because the appraisal process, right, and the neighborhood and all the other things that go along with it. But the hospitality side is really what drives that true value, that we can then go buy that property and then bring it to an investor and say, hey, this is worth you putting your money into to get a strong return. And then you also know, which again with the real estate side, is that as long as, especially we're in a housing crisis like we've been in the United States anyway, that value or that property is not going to go to zero, right? I mean, it's almost impossible. Unlike the stock market, where that could be the case. That's kind of, we look at it and we think they're just intrinsically connected. And I think you really need strong assets, but you also need the strong hospitality as well to really make this a true pair.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a few things I'd like to get your opinion on when you look at multifamily versus short-term rentals. One thing you mentioned is that you always underwrite your properties as if you were going to rent them out for the long term. So if it doesn't work out as a long-term property, then you don't move forward. I think that's a good best practice. The other one people talk a lot about in the space is having multiple exit strategies. With multifamily, it's clear that you can go in, increase the NOI of a property, and you can refinance because the banks are gonna accept that revenue increase. You're mentioning that the whole thesis behind doing this same approach for short-term rentals is that there's going to be institutional investors in a few years that are going to come in and buy those short-term rental portfolios. What about in the meantime? What other exit strategies can you be looking at in the more near term, other than selling? Because there's the risk that if you sell, the regular investor is not going to valuate your property based on the revenue. It's going to just look at the market value, and it's going to compare you against that 40,000 per year property, which, it's not comparable. So do you think it's really a long-term game as far as waiting for those institutional players to be in the market? Or do you think there's also more and more of an opportunity where you can refinance, for example, and have the institutional the financial institutions recognize those increases in revenue?
Yeah, I mean, I think we definitely take a much more long-term perspective on this. We generally don't like to sell properties in general, right? So we're not looking to get out, especially if the property is performing. I do think there's some opportunities where if interest rates drop in the next 2-3 years, which we suspect they will, I think it's just, if you look at history, it's unlikely that they would remain high or go up much higher. Mm-hmm. You'll have the opportunity to maybe pull some capital out and hold on to the property as well. But I do think we look at it more as a long-term play of once, banks, private equity, just investments become just more aware of the space and just is willing to put more institutional capital in. I think that's where we can kind of take advantage of it. But again, it goes back to what you said before, like a part of, we won't buy a property. Now, there's always exceptions, right? So if you're going to buy a tree house in Tennessee, right, you're not going to get long-term rent for that. And you understand that is going to be a unique property that probably cash flows really well. But generally speaking, we won't buy a property unless we can, worst case scenario, get a long-term renter in there and it's still cash flows. Obviously not as well as short-term rental, but I think that just gives ourselves and obviously our investors just this, peace of mind that we're not going to be buying properties that potentially could be negative in cash flow, right? Because that hurts the rest of the portfolio. There's a lot of issues that come along and that can be problematic. So we take a very long-term approach, but I think there will be some probably in between areas that could be unique to a lot of investors in this space that maybe they can exit in different ways.
Got it. So, Justin, give us an overview of what you're up to nowadays. You have the syndication going on. You're building a community as well. I know you have the Facebook group that's free. Then you have also this more like paid mastermind thing going on as well. Give us a sense of everything you have going on right now and where you're spending most of your time. nowadays?
Yeah. I mean, always real estate first. I think it's important to stay current, especially in the short-term rental space, right? There's always things going on. You get, news, you get, regulation risk and stuff. So we make sure that we're staying on top as well as kind of growing the portfolio. Our goal is to continue to grow, right? So we're acquiring properties in Mississippi, still in Florida. We're moving into some new markets where we're going to be doing some development, like in North Charleston. We try to remain as active as we can to take advantage of the opportunities that we feel are right here, right now, right? Simultaneously, we are building a community of people that are successful in their own right, but want to really understand how can I make my money work for myself, right? For itself. I think a lot of business owners get really laser focused on building their business. And then at some point they start bringing in a lot of revenue. And then it's like, okay, well, this is amazing. This is what I always wanted. But then what am I going to do with this revenue, right? Because at the end of the day, you're still trading time for money. So I think we're really trying to create a space for people that want to either A, grow a portfolio themselves. So we have something that my wife and I created. It's called the Short-Term Rental Millionaires Blueprint. And really what we do is we show you how we started off in the business, and you can go and do this yourself, right? Like, we're not saying, hey, you need to invest in our deal. If you want to just kind of learn how you can start off, take that money and then buy a property, whether it's close to you, remotely, a different space, we give you a step-by-step guide on how to go through all those steps, from underwriting your property, see if it works, a market, what are your debt options, how you can partner with people. So we really want to create this really cool space where successful people can come together and learn how to do this themselves. And then also, we can meet people that want to partner with us as well. That gives them the opportunity to know what we're doing, what we have going on, and really build that relationship. So it's a really cool project that my wife and I put together, and we're just looking to grow that community because I think there's so much opportunity in this space, and we're abundance people. We think there's enough money out here for everybody, so there's no reason for us to be hush hush about what we're doing and how we're doing it, and we want to give people that opportunity to be able to do it for themselves and better their families. If you want to, you just keep your day job, your W-2 or your business, but if you want to do this on the side, for us, this is our retirement. I don't believe in 401ks. I think all that stuff gypsy magic. I don't want to be at the whims of the stock market. I want to know that I own tangible assets that pay me cash flow even when I'm older, and that's what I'm going to live off of. Like, I'm not looking to mooch off my kids, have them take care of me. Like, we're making sure that we're doing what we need to do to make sure that we are well off into the future, and we want to help other people do that as well.
Yeah, that's amazing. So, Justin, earlier you were mentioning how when you started looking at stocks, you kind of realized that it wasn't for you. You had the self-awareness to say, this is not for me. Let me try another vehicle. Right now, you're building this community to help people get into the short-term rental space. What would you say if you were coaching someone about the self-awareness that's needed to know if this is the space where you should play at or not? What would you say are some of the traits, characteristics, or interests for you to tell someone, yes, I think you should come into this space, and I think this is going to be for you, as opposed to someone that could maybe try this out and then realize they should go and trade stocks instead?
Yeah, exactly. For number one, just as far as self-development, I think anyone that wants to better themselves in any way has to truly take a true look at their behaviors, their mindset, what they like to do in order to figure out what direction you should go in life, right? I don't ever tell people, oh, you should get into the short-term rental space, but I do say that you should be investing in something, whether it's a business, definitely yourself, real estate, it could be the stock market. So, but it takes that reflection on what do I need to do to get better in order to reach those goals. And if you're not real with yourself, you're not going to be successful in whatever it is that you want to be in, right? It's the people that really sit back and reflect on it. How can I get better each day? And are truly honest with, are you someone that truly hates the mornings, right? But you're the most productive at the afternoon. Maybe you shouldn't be waking up every morning trying to push through it. Maybe you should sleep in a little bit and then do your most productive time. But that takes a level of self-awareness that you have to have in order to work optimally, right? I think you have to be someone who, A, likes to create experiences for people, right? So you need to understand people, be people focused. I think you need to be somebody who's adaptable and creative. I think this is a cool space because you're literally dealing with different things all the time, whether it's trying to pivot in regulations, trying to make sure that you are staying unique and different within a market. I think people who really like change and like to be adaptable, I think this is a great space for them. I mean, if you just want to run the numbers all day, maybe you should go look at like self-storage, right? Or, even multifamily. I mean, it's not a whole lot of creativity in those spaces. I mean, there can be, but this is truly a space where you can get really unique and find unique opportunities. And it makes it fun, man. And that's why I love it. Like, it fits my personality type because it's definitely go, go, go. But it's also, okay, how can we make this place better? How can we find unique ways of doing this to differentiate ourselves? And it becomes really cool. And it becomes like something that's different all the time. You get to go to really cool locations. Like, I'm not looking for short-term rentals out in, Des Moines, Iowa, right? No offense to Des Moines. I'm sure it's probably beautiful there. But, I'm looking for places, a mile, a block from the beach, right? To where I can enjoy and go spend time with my family and, we can enjoy hanging out there. So that's what I'm kind of saying to that.
Yeah. Absolutely. So Justin, give us a sense of the size of the portfolio right now, more or less, what you guys are at in terms of the structure you have going on. Is everything under one fund, or do you have different joint ventures going on?
Yeah, we're very segmented. It depends on, because we do partnerships, we have our own portfolio. So we started off before building a business around it, having just 12 properties, myself and my wife. So it's kind of legacy family stuff. Then since then, we've been able to grow, and we do JVs with people. We do partners. We're now doing, obviously, we're raising for a fund. We're doing syndications for groups of properties. So, really, it's kind of all over, but it's under the kind of Less Than More Capital name now. So even in development, the goal is to start building out 6 to 12 townhomes in North Charleston. And it's really cool because our property management group are veterans as well. And the goal is to build it out, and I'll partner with a group that has a phenomenal reputation and has close ties to the military. We can build out the properties, control the costs on our end, really juice up the revenue and NOI in really specific location that we can control. And then our exit is then to sell to veterans, right? So we're going to be close to military bases as well. So, we're able to do really fun and unique stuff like that. Also, that's purpose driven as well. So kind of gives you some more fuzzies at the end as well. So it's cool.
That's awesome. That's very cool, Justin. So you are working on, on the project of building a community as well as everything else you got going on with the portfolio and whatnot. How much of a role did community mentorship, investing in yourself, how much of a role did that play in your success? When you were starting out, first learning about the space, other than your traditional education, were you going to this kind of masterminds? Did you have a mentor? Did you have any of that going on, or was it more just self-education through either books or just trial and error? What was it for you that you're trying to replicate?
Yeah, getting into real estate initially, it was very much, I found mentors, and I was a part of masterminds, but it was for a different asset class, which one of the best parts about it, even if you don't end up going into that asset class, what I always tell people, it's the networking piece, right? Like, you're going to build relationships with people. Real estate's real estate, right? Like, I come across multifamily guys, self-storage guys, long-term guys, and you can build relationships. You guys can leverage each other along the way. Short-term rentals was something that I kind of fell into, and I really was trial and error and beating my head against the wall. And it was still kind of early on where if it was on the radar as far as, masterminds and stuff, I wasn't aware of it. I've only recently started to build out kind of my social media presence and really engage with people and stuff. So I wasn't really aware of anyone that was doing this on, a large scale, right? So that was the reason I built my community, because I want to have a place where if you like me or my wife and you like what we have going on in our way of doing things, then, welcome aboard, right? We'll teach you everything that we know and help you along the way. I think a lot of time with mentorships, it's such a beautiful thing, and I'm such an advocate of investing in self. But really, everybody's information is exactly the same. The difference is the person that you're learning from, right? Like, how well do you connect with them, how well you take in the information from them. Really, I think what kind of could change your trajectory in terms of how quickly you can get to where you need to go. Because that's the goal of mentorship, right? It's like skipping those steps, right? You don't have to do all the things I did and fall all the times that I did to get where you need to go. You're still going to fall. It's still going to suck. It's still going to be hard, but you'll be able to get there much faster if somebody's kind of guiding you along the way and showing you, hey, stay away from this, or maybe you should do it this way, versus trying to do it on your own. So I'm a huge advocate of that.
Yeah, it shortens the learning curve for sure, and allows you to learn from other people's mistakes instead of it always having to be yours. Mistakes are still going to be made, as you said. You're still gonna struggle, but it's definitely helpful. Now, tell me something in terms of, I'm a big fan of collecting mental models, and some of the models, let's say from David Goggins, that I've learned and that I find interesting are, he talks about the mirror, the accountability mirror. So when he, every morning or so, something like that, he looks at himself in the mirror and kind of like just talk to himself about what needs to be done, what he's falling short on, and whatnot. And then the other one is the 40% rule, which is like, when you feel like you are about to get to the limit of your capacity, you're really only 40% there. You're really like, you still have a lot more to give. I'm wondering if you have anything like that going on, any sort of routine, any sort of let's call it whatever you want to call it, mental model, something that helps you recenter whenever you're facing difficulties, because we understand that difficulties are part of this game. What is it for you? Is it just thinking about your family? Is it just focusing back on the discipline of staying in shape, and is there such a thing for you in your life and your business that helps you recenter and go through those obstacles?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, David Goggins, he's the greatest. I love that guy, and I love what he represents. I think he is why he's become so successful. I guess just so popular, because I think people like that are very much needed nowadays. I think especially from a culture standpoint. I definitely don't have any sayings like he does, anything cool to kind of give out, but I definitely heavily rely on this, right? Like I believe that, especially as being a man in this world and, having a family, that my children look up to me and I'm the head of my household, that, discipline is what drives me every single day, right? So it doesn't matter if I don't feel like it, I still do it, right? It's like I can be sad, I can be not in the mood. To me, that doesn't matter, right? Like, it's pointless. At the end of the day, there are things that need to get done, and I'm going to do them regardless, right? Most days I don't feel like getting up at 4:30 in the morning to work out, but I do it, right? And it always makes me feel better. There are times that I'm super tired, but, if I need to get it done, I will do it. So really, discipline is the driving force for me. And it's like, once you kind of get over, and it's almost to that 40% rule, right? People think that you can't push past it. Like, that's garbage. Like, once you kind of get rid of that mentality of like, oh, I'm so tired, or I can't work out, or I don't have time. Everybody has the same amount of time, but it's funny how one person you look at a guy like Dwayne Johnson, who's, making 3 or 4 movies at a time, still works out every day, spends time with his family. But then you get a normal person on the street that says they don't have time to work out. It's crap, right? It's a mindset thing. And I think once people really cultivate that mindset that, once you choose what you want to do, you have the commitment towards it, and you put the discipline in place to achieve those things and creating that roadmap, you can go and do anything that you set your mind to. And I truly believe.
Did you ever struggle with discipline, or is it something you always had, where you always were good at doing things despite how you
and that's why
felt?
I believe you can cultivate it, because I didn't grow up that way at all. Like, I was somebody growing up in Baltimore, no dad. Mom went to jail when I was a teenager. Lived with my grandparents, my brother and I pretty much from 10th, 11th grade, like, I just kind of did what I wanted to do. I had no discipline whatsoever. So, but I think I recognized that, but I had self-awareness always. And I think that was a part of the driving force of me going into the military, because I was one of those kids that I needed to get to a structured environment to figure out, like, how can I actually push my life in the direction that I wanted to go into, because I moved off of pure emotion all the time. And that for me is one of the worst ways you can live your life. And that's something I really instill in my kids. Like, you need to make sure that you keep your emotions in check and do what you know intellectually you should be doing. Emotions aren't pointless. There are times when you do need those. I'm definitely an advocate of being caring, being loving, and that's how I love my kids. But ultimately, being a man, and I teach my boys this, it's like you need to have that structure in place to make sure you're doing what's right, that you're pushing yourself, your family, your business forward every single day. And that's a non-negotiable.
Hmm. Yeah, and it's not easy, right? When you grow up, people might grow up in different circumstances, and some of them might not even be self-aware about the fact that they lack this kind of structure. What would you say to someone that doesn't, that knows they wanna instill discipline into their lives? Maybe they won't end up going to the military, right? Maybe they just want to, without having to go through that, build some practices. What are some of the practices that help you instill discipline in your life once you were out of the military? What helped you keep that structure once that structure was no longer being enforced on you, but it was kind of for up to you to enforce it on yourself?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it's, number one, goal setting, but more than that, because, you can set goals, but if it's not on your heart, you're probably not going to do what it takes to achieve them. So first, find out what your why is, right? So everybody's why is different. Whether it's your kids, your wife, your family. Really, some people are motivated purely by money, right? If that is your true why and that moves you to get up, build your goals around your why. And I think those are the things, and then really make a roadmap of, okay, what does it take to actually get there? What are the actions I need to take every single day in order to get there? For me, working out, it's like or just building my business, I have to work out every day to feel good, to function. So it doesn't matter if I go out with my wife and we drink and stuff like that, and we stay out till 12, 1 o'clock, which is rare, but we do that sometimes. I'm still up at 4:30, right? It doesn't matter to me. And once I kind of get that mindset in there that no matter what, this is what you're going to do, it becomes, I don't say easier over time because it still sucks, right? But I think you just have to cultivate it. But it's always driven by your why. So that's kind of my biggest advice. It's like you have to figure it out for yourself. Like what is your driving factor, why you want to achieve whatever goal it is, and then put a plan in place and you just have to execute.
So we talked a little bit about why you got into what you're doing currently, but I'm sure the why also evolves with time, right? I can imagine that there's stages in life where you're chasing certain things, and then that becomes something else. What would you say is your why right now behind everything that you have going on? You talked about being a good example for your family, for your children. What is it? What is it that pushes you to perform at this level?
Yeah, I mean, I want to be one of the best people in this space. I mean, that is what's a driving factor for me. Like, I want to grow and be one of the people they recognize that's at the top of the game in this STR space. But that's still secondary to my family and my children. To me, my children are my why. They are what I hold as the standard for myself, is because I know that they're watching me. And I know that's the example that I'm placing on them, and they're going to follow what I do. I think it's like Ed Milet or somebody. It's like, kids don't really learn what you say. It's like what you do, and you get a really much more clever way of saying it. But I believe that wholeheartedly. There are traits that I picked up from my mom or my family that they never spoke on. But it's like I realized when self-reflecting, like, oh, yeah, I used to watch them do that, and that's why I do that. So I'm hyper aware of the things that I do every day, whether it's working out, whether it's working hard in the business. That is what my kids see, and I want them to emulate that. And if they don't, I at least set the example, and that's truly important to me. And that is my driving why I do almost everything that I do.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So from all the projects that you have currently, what are you most excited about for the next 12 to 18 months? Is it the development project? Is that something new for you? Actually developing.
Yep. Yeah, that is the most exciting. I think having an opportunity to build in a really cool place like Charleston. There's some other markets we really like. But then also to be purposeful in that we can kind of control every level of that operation. And then also to exit and sell to veterans is really awesome to me, right? Like, I mean, I love veterans. A part of the reason why I built the community out initially was to help veterans out. I think a lot of veterans have amazing skills and they get out of the military and it doesn't necessarily always translate well into corporate environments, but being an entrepreneur, 100% translate. But a lot of times they don't recognize that. So it's almost letting people know that, hey, no, these skills that you acquired over the time, whether you did 4 years or you did 20 years, are extremely valuable and can help you go further and faster than most people that didn't go through those trainings. So that is something that's truly close to my heart and I'm really excited about here in the future.
So walk us through that process of doing a new development project. Just for those out there that might be interested in doing it, right? I understand that you're partnering with a property management company. Is it Patriot Homes that
No,
you
so
are
they
working?
are our property management company that we partner with. I'm JVing with an actual vertically integrated group, so I can't say the name, but eventually it'll come out. But yeah, so they have the development background. Pretty much, they have to hold the background outside of short-term rentals, right? So that's why it's a perfect marriage.
Okay. So you were going to be in charge of, I mean, was it you finding the land?
Yep.
How did that happen as far as the land goes? Because, of course, zoning is a big component. So I'm just curious, if we take it step by step, let's say you find that piece of land that could potentially work out. Do you work on the permits or look at how doable it would be to operate as a short-term rental before you make the offer, or does it happen almost in parallel?
No. So actually, you do all that prior to even putting an offer in on land or even looking for land. Like the first piece is, what's your purpose? Who are you trying to serve, right? And for us, it's tourist locations, but also military, right? So that's our driving force. So we need to be close to or within a reasonable range to military installations. And then it's looking at all those within the U.S., what markets are the most viable. And then you get down to sub-markets and then down to what areas actually would produce the amount of income versus the build costs and everything else that comes into play, right? So you're almost working backwards to finding where's the right area, and then you go look for the land. And then you look for the permits, or maybe it's already zoned commercial, or maybe you need to do some permitting changes and stuff like that. So, and then from there, it's just the process goes on and on, right? Then it goes to then building the asset and, then operating. And that's when we bring a property management group in to make sure that they're operating their property sufficiently. And then you go to the end.
So for the financing, so let's say in this case, was the land already zoned as commercial? So you already, when you found it, you already knew you could operate as a short-term rental, or did you have to?
You need to make sure that it's actually the area that can be performed as a short-term rental. And that's what I'm saying. You need to make sure you have all that information prior to going in, right? But for us, it's about, it's really then becomes the price of the land, right? So ideally, we want to go into a piece of land that's already zoned to be built like commercial. When I say that, townhomes, right? And also, either you can buy a permit or license to actually operate there, or you're just going to go somewhere else and maybe you rezone a piece of land and then see if you can operate in. So it can get tricky, especially with STR regulation, right?
Yeah, no, for sure.
Unique, so
that's why I was asking. And for the financing part of it, you can raise money for the construction. You can raise money just for the down payment, and then have a bridge loan for the actual construction itself. What's the approach you took? You can self-fund the entire construction and then just exit with selling the actual units. What was your strategy, and how did you get to that strategy? Was it the only option on the table, or did it come after some reflection of the different financing options you could pursue?
Yeah, it just becomes what makes sense in the moment, what makes sense for the market that we're in, what makes sense for just the current climate. So for us, we have institutions that we leverage in order to get, development financing. And then we bring in equity stakeholders to our capital partners in to fill the gap and bridge the need. So that's how we look at it. So it's just all about relationships. So real estate is a very relationship driven business. So you need to make sure that you're plugged in with the right people. And if you're not, figure out who those people are and then get connected.
Yeah, absolutely. And what would you say is one thing that you've learned throughout these years of being in real estate that you wish you had known when you were just getting started, that could have maybe helped you avoid a costly mistake, or maybe help you get to where you are today
Yeah,
faster?
I don't focus on that, man. Like, everything that happens, it happens. It's just an event. That's kind of how I look at things. The only thing I wish I would have done is try to go faster earlier. And it's funny because that was one of the things that I heard before I got into real estate, and I thought I was going fast. I thought I was going big, but I really wasn't. Right. And it's a perspective thing. I always tell people that it is so much easier to do a big deal than it is to do a small deal. Like, even just buying a house, especially when you're going through a bank, you're not going through like a investment, firm or an investment finance company for investment properties. They will put you through more hopes going to Wells Fargo and comb through your life in a lot greater detail than trying to do a $100 million multifamily property. It's insane, right? But it's like you don't know that until you know it, right? And so that's always a little bit words of wisdom I like to tell people.
I want to touch on this just for a second, because I think there's two extremes out there. There's, like, let's say, the Grant Cardone extreme of 10x, go big, forget the small deals, just go buy 100 units and more, from the get-go. And then you have more like the Robert Kiyosaki approach. He is more like, he says there's value in you starting small. There's value in you learning how to deal with your tenants. Start with a duplex, fourplex, whatever it may be, and then you kind of scale from there. You're saying now that looking backwards, you wish you had gone bigger, faster, earlier. How do you look at the two opposites and extremes? And if you're looking at, let's say you're giving advice to your children, right? Let's say they're, at the age where they're ready to get into this world of real estate investing, and they're getting started, right? What would you say? Would you say, go big and just raise the money and it's going to be a lot easier than starting small? Because there's all the insecurities as well that come when you're just getting started. You're like, how am I going to go big if I haven't even done this at a smaller scale? Like, I'm dealing with other people's money. It's scary, it's dangerous, versus starting small and then having to a few years later be like, oh, I could have gone a lot faster. So you see, like, it's two extremes. How do you see that, and how would you advise, let's say, your children if they were facing that dilemma of going big versus starting small and building from there when they were just getting started?
I look at it, first of all, like, your mindset needs to be first and foremost, number one priority, right? So I think what I've seen with people is that hurts them the most or makes them struggle the most is the mindset, not believing that they can do something. So let's put that aside, right? Let's say that they believe it, they're all in, they're ready to go. Then it just becomes vision, right? Is your vision to own 5 properties, right? And that just be a supplement for your W-2 job? Then yeah, go small. That's completely fine, right? If that is what your end goal is. But is your vision to actually grow, build a business into something massive, then you should go faster or bigger faster, right? So there is no right or wrong answer to it, right? It's just a matter of, like, kind of what is your vision for how you want your life to be. I mean, there are some people that have no desire to build a real estate empire whatsoever, right? Like, they just want to have enough assets that allow them to take a couple great vacations, keep extra money in their pocket, continue to invest, and they're good. There are other people, Grant Cardones, that want jets, want mega yachts, want, Aston Martins and all that. Well, you're not going to get all that if you're buying 1 or 2 properties a year, right? So it's always on the individual. So again, there's no right or wrong. It's just, you need to figure out what your true priorities are, what you truly want. Because some people say they want all that stuff, but they're not really going to work for it. So you actually don't really want it, right? So it's all an individual. So I tend to not give advice to people because I think you need to always look at yourself and say, hey, and be reflective. Like, what are the things that I truly want in life? And it really needs to be in line with what you're willing to work for. Because a lot of people want a lot of things, but they don't want to do the goddamn work. And that's the problem.
Yeah. You got to start with your own objectives. That makes sense. But at the same time, you started by saying, let's assume they got the mindset right. Let's assume they got the self-belief right. Yet that might be the thing that makes the whole difference. Like, maybe you have the skill sets to go big, but you don't have the belief in yourself that you can go big. So then the question becomes, what's the best way to build that self-belief? Can you build self-belief without having done the work progressively and building from there? Like you, for example, could you be where you are at currently, if you had started big from the get-go, or starting small and building from there was fundamental to you now being able to see as big? It's not a question you need to answer. It's more something that I think it's a debate. I mean, I think it's more important to act and go forward and progress rather than debating, should I go big or should I go small? Just go, right?
No,
but at the same time, it's
that. Like, whatever it is, just do something, right? I think that's the problem that people suffer the most. What they call like analysis paralysis. Really, it's just people are scared, right? It always boils back down to fear. And I just say, if you want to overcome fear, go do it, right? So whatever that looks like, you need to just go do it. That's the thing I always say.
Absolutely. Justin, we're getting over here with the time. I've really enjoyed this time here. Where can people connect with you? I feel like it's pretty much everywhere. But where is the best place for people to connect with you?
That's right, man. I'm full-fledged all the social media. So it's always, you can just look up Justin C. Mosley _ LCM. So on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Threads. I'm on all of it. So just look it up. And my company is Less Than More Capital. You can take a look at that as well. We have a lot of great educational stuff. So I have a full ebook on how I went from the military into getting into the short-term rental space. So it's always an interesting one if you just want to kind of understand that journey and what that looked like. And then we have our short-term rental blueprint, millionaire blueprint program. If you want to learn more, we have a free Facebook group. If you just want to dabble in and see if it might be right for you. I always welcome people to come in and engage with our community.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Justin. By the way, I read that ebook yesterday, and it was super interesting, super insightful. Great, great job there. Hopefully there's going to be another episode. What can people expect from Justin for the next couple of months?
Yeah, we're in full acquisition mode. So there will be a lot of content put out on the properties that we're taking down, and then how after we go in and we do the renovations and get them up and running. So really excited to kind of show that piece. That's something I haven't really showed before. And then just continue to grow, man. Like this is a fun journey. So the opportunity is now. Our interest rates are high. A lot of deals on pencil. Short-term rentals are still rocking and rolling. So especially if you get operations in place. So if you want to get into this game, this is the time to do it now.
Very exciting. Thanks so much, Justin.
Awesome. Thank you, my friend.